Hi there, the video I'm going to do today is based around a 10-mark explain question, and that question is explain the reasons for family change in modern Britain. And there's been a lot of change to the family structure since the 1950s, and this is what you should be talking about within your answer. So you can talk briefly about there's been many changes to the family over the years, and these are possibly the reasons why there's been changed. So, as it a 10-mark question, on my previous video it shows you, but it should be between 3 and 4 paragraphs. It is an explain question, so make sure you use the word because on many occasions. Explain your answers. To structure your sentences, I would use point, evidence, effect, or reason, explain, example, or reason, explain further. And in an exam you should be looking to spend between 10 and 15 minutes on the question. So looking at the question, the first paragraph I would talk about is changing norms and values. Over the years people have developed different ideas about families. It is not seen as unusual for people to live together before marriage or even to have children outside of marriage. Homosexuality is more accepted. That came in 1967. It was legal to be in a gay relationship. So same-sex couples can form relationships and even have children together. In the past, women were expected to get married. Unmarried, they were expected to give up work and stay at home to look after their husband. Now men and women expect to be more equal. Alright, so changing of norms and value have changed within society, which is a big part of the changes that's occurred. Secondly, we're going to look at technological changes. So until the 1960s, couples generally only used contraception if the man was willing. It was on the man's terms. The first contraception that women controlled was actually the pill, and so when that came about, this meant that women had the freedom to choose when to have children. So the 1960s was a big change in the fact that women had more choice around when they were up to be having children. Families became smaller and women could have sex outside of marriage if they chose to. Medical technology also means that more people live into extreme old age, so the developments of technology has led to people living older, which has obviously then impact upon some families becoming extended families and things like that. So that's another reason why families change, in looking at the introduction of contraception and the fact that women in the 60s had more decision as to whether they would have children or when they have children. The third paragraph I would talk about is secularisation. Looking at secularisation, religion is less important in people's lives than it once were. So obviously in the 50s and 60s, many couples met and got married, and often, as I've spoke about on my previous videos about shotgun marriages, where because it was frowned upon to have children outside of wedlock, if people did fall pregnant, then they would in fact have a quick marriage to save the embarrassment of having a child without being married. And a lot of that is around religion, but the people were a lot more religious in the 50s and 60s. For many people, if not everyone, religious ideas are less important today. The Christian religion teaches people that marriage is scarce and that divorce is a bad thing. If people are not religious, then they are less likely to marry before sex, and also more likely to have a divorce. So linking to that, people who were religious believed that you didn't have sex before marriage, and also the fact that divorce was frowned upon within society. And the fourth change, which is a huge change as to why families have changed in today's society, and that is gender attitudes. And the feminists are big drivers around that and towards equality, particularly since the 1975 Equal Pay Act, which got brought about from the Dagenham sewing strike in '68. Feminist is the belief that men and women should be equal partners in society. In the 70s, more women became feminists and began to challenge traditional ideas that they stay at home and look after the children, or that men were in charge of the society. So women started to challenge the system of patriarchy. More women started to get jobs for themselves and no longer had to rely on their husband to give them money, which was also known in the 50s as housekeeping. It also meant they could divorce if they were unhappy. So basically the change of gender attitudes is that if women are unhappy in a relationship, they can actually make a decision that they are going to get divorced purely in the fact that they have more options in terms of career and jobs, and obviously they are often more educated and have more control within the family, such as holding a mortgage and things like that. And also as well, if they choose to get divorced, they can live at home. So that is a big impact as to why there's been a change in modern Britain. And also as well, women no longer today, and they shouldn't have had to in the 50s, may I add, but they no longer had to tolerate domestic abuse if they chose not to. And I think in the 50s it was a little bit more, I wouldn't say seen as a norm, but many women suffered domestic abuse, emotionally and physically, and I think tolerated purely the fact that they didn't have any other option but to stay within their bad marriage. So there are 4 reasons for family change in modern Britain today, and then finally I would structure your answer around these key terms which I've brought up there. There's a couple of key sociologists that you may wish to talk about within your answer, which is Dobash and Dobash, who were feminists, and they looked at domestic violence and basically made the point that many women suffered domestic violence in the 50s, so you could bring it into the changing attitude that women no longer suffer domestic violence. And also you include the feminist view from Anne Oakley around inequality within the family, and saying that women no longer want to just stay at home and do the old traditional roles of the housewife. They're more career minded, which has therefore led to change. So Anne Oakley's you could also bring in there, as well as Dobash, as I've said. And that's more or less it around there. So best of luck with that. And like I say, you can now see a structure of how I would go about. It is a very basic structure, but you can look at 4 paragraphs to structure that answer. So have a go, and the best of luck. Thank you.